It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life. From the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators. The famous and not so famous. The controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here is Douglas Coleman.
Hey, hey. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. We don't have much time today. We've got an interview and we've got lots of music to play. And I've got just about a minute and a half to get all this said. The interview is with Michael Grandinetti. He is a returning guest. He's an illusionist who is now on his 4th season of Masters of Illusion, which can be seen on the CW network. Please check your local listings for dates and times. He will be up in the second half of the show. Before we get to Michael, we've got 8 songs, yes, 8, from Music X-Ray submissions. Thank you very much to everybody who's been submitting on Music X-Ray. We really appreciate it. In running order, we've got How Does That Make You Feel by Dawn Carnival, followed by Ride by Papa Satch, Love You More by Cremo, Journey of the Heart by P. Sam Marco, If You Love by My Dad and I, Above the Clouds by Sarantos, Return from the Abyss by Mary Citoli, and that's spelled M-E-R-R-Y, like Merry Christmas. Finally, to wrap it up, Ruthless by Alke, A-L-K-E. We will be right back with the music, followed by Michael Grandinetti.
Sitting all alone in a room with no lights on. And how does that make you feel? You're not around for anyone. Well, how does that make you feel? Staring at a wall, thinking something must be wrong. How does that make you feel? Just wasting time, feeling nothing at all. How does that make you feel? If you ever feel afraid, better go and see today. Then you'll change your mind, put down what's left behind, move along and our way. Spend most of your day keeping the rain off your parade. How does that make you feel? Wonder where it ends and where it begins. How does that make you feel? If you ever feel afraid, get outside and see today. Then you'll change your mind, put down what's left behind, move along and not away. but the door's so far away. How does that make you feel? Distracting the feelings in an old familiar way. How does that make you feel?
love me, but I love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more. You said you love me, but I love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more. Love you more, really love you more. You're thinking while you're sleeping, now your mind slips away. You take a look at me and my knees start to shake. Wouldn't change a thing about you.
wouldn't change a thing about you. You said you love me, but I love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more. Love you more, I love you more. Weighing out your thoughts like the people you are. I know your eyes are blue, I can tell from afar, but I wouldn't change a thing about you. No, I wouldn't change a thing about you. Don't change, baby. You know I love you more than I ever did before. You're my sunny day. You make me smile when you say I love you. I love you. I love you. You say you love me, but I love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more. Love you, really love you more. Love you more, love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more than ever before. You said you love me, but I love you more. Love you, really love you. I love you more, really love you more. I know you love me, but I love you more. A glass full of wine, a plate full of time to use or lose. Well, I know which choice is mine. You gotta spread your wings in order to fly. You might soar or dive, but at least you'll know you've tried. It's not the destination or where we had our start. It's the journey that really matters, a journey of the heart. Let's dive from a plane, spin up or spin down, and surf the clouds and never touch the ground. When we start to glide, we'll dip and we'll dive into space where we'll dine in a rhinestone-studded sky. It's not the destination or where we had our start. It's the journey that really matters, a journey of the heart. Life is champagne, you should pop it right now. It's a gift to enjoy. Raise your glass and drink it down. Whoa, oh yeah. always sunny above the clouds. It's always sunny above the clouds. The sun's power, it never ends. It's carefree and divine. The rays always cleanse. So please remember, some days are bad, some nights are hard, sometimes you're sad. But remember that hot or cold, day or night, above the clouds, sun always shines bright. This never changes, no matter how loud the rain shouts, no matter how bad it gets. It's always sunny above the clouds. It's always sunny above the clouds. Below the clouds, there's pain, so much pain. But above the clouds, there is no rain. Hot or cold, day or night, above the clouds, sun always shines bright, so bright. This never changes, no matter how loud the rain shouts, no matter how bad it gets, no matter. It's always sunny above the clouds. It's always sunny above the clouds. This never changes, no matter how loud the rain shouts, no matter how bad it gets. It's always sunny above the clouds. It's always sunny. It always stays sunny. It's always sunny above the clouds. Yeah.
After the darkness is over, after the battle is won, no more fear for me to run from, only the shells from the empty guns. I never saw the enemy for who they really were. I only saw a friend still standing where the dust had barely stirred. Returned from the abyss, emerging grace and awakening kiss. Darkness held my hand. Evil wins when we don't take a stand. Into the light I rise, where return from abyss begins. The screaming voices in my head, you ever understood? Your demons dark and lonely too. You held on tight like no one could. Return from the abyss, emerging grace and awakening kiss. Darkness held my hand, and evil wins if we don't take a stand. Into the light I rise, return from abyss begins. My silent ghost from the ashes rises into my heart and it flows, but no one knows where it goes. Return from the abyss, emerging grace in a windy kiss. Darkness held my hand. You know that evil will win if we don't take a stand. Into the light I rise, where return from abyss begins. Darkness held my hand. You know that evil will win if we don't take a stand.
If these walls are tall, I don't wanna know what they say. If I didn't walk on eggshells, would you know my name? I was your freedom, I could have set you free. Jealousy has an ugly face. Kiss me just in case. You're such an animal, so territorial. You can keep your space. You don't leave it. Now the truth is, I am ruthless. I got bruises. Only God can tell you how. Your excuse is that I'm stupid, but I got through this. Only God can help me now. And when they ask me what I think about you, I say I don't think of you at all. You love, you love, you love. I was just your Barbie doll. You cut my hair and you let me fall to the bottom shelf. That's not where I belong. Whoever told you it's okay to break your toys? Such a sad little boy. You're such an animal. You're out of control. But it's me in a cage. Now I'm leaving. Now the truth is, I am ruthless. I got bruises. Only God can tell you how. Your excuse is that I'm stupid, but I got through this. Only God can help me now. When they ask me what I think about you, I say I don't think of you at all. You love, you love, you love. Now the truth is, I am ruthless. I got bruises. Only God can tell you how. Your excuse is that I'm stupid, but I got through this. Only God can help me now. And when they ask me what I think about you, I say I don't think of you at all.
And now,
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, returning to the Douglas Coleman Show is a guest we had on about 18 months ago. He's an illusionist, and you've probably seen him on TV and all kinds of other places. Please welcome back Michael Grandinetti. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hey, Douglas. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me back. It's good to talk with you again.
Yes, nice to talk to you, too. Thank you for coming back. I said it was been 18 months since you've been on the show, so a year and a half. It really doesn't seem like it was that long. Your conversation that we had is still very fresh in my mind. And it's funny when I looked that up and I said, my God, it's been 18 months since he was on the show, but we had a really good chat, I thought, the last time, and I just kind of wanted to continue on and see what you've been up to for the past year and a half.
Well, I agree. It is scary how fast time goes, and it seems like we just talked last week. So, we got to figure out a way to slow time down, I think. But, no, it's definitely good talking with you again, and I'd be happy to fill you in. It's been a busy 18 months, and it's going to be a busy year ahead.
Well, give us some idea. What have you been up to? I know that Masters of Illusion is in its fourth season now.
Yeah, it comes back on June 30th for its fourth season.
That's great.
And it'll run for another 13 weeks this summer. So I'm really, really excited about it. It's to have one season of a show go on is fantastic, but to have it to be received so well and come back for all these seasons is it's thrilling. And I'm very happy to be a part of it. We've gotten the feedback from people who watch it. They seem to truly enjoy it, so I love that. Now,
the show it's not just you, right? It's other illusionists as well, kind of like a showcase?
Yeah, basically what it is the producers of the show invite who they feel are the best magicians from around the world to Hollywood to basically present their best stuff in front of a live audience. There's 300 people there watching. And it's basically it's just a performance show. It is, you'll be able to tune in every week and see 6 or 8 different magicians from around the world, all different types of magic. Escapes and comedy magic and big illusions and close-up magic and interactive magic. And it really is a great showcase for magic from around the world. And for people, it's a great way for people to see all the different styles of magic that are out there. So it's a fun show.
How much time do you get? First of all, how long is the show? Is it an hour?
It's a half-hour show.
Half hour. Oh, okay.
And yeah, each segment is an individual illusion. So however long the illusion takes, that's how long your segment is. But typically, it's about 3 to 5 minutes. We tape every year. The fun of it for me is trying to figure out ways to kind of top what we did in the past. I always tell people I'm never in competition with other magicians, but I very much compete with myself. So coming back multiple years for something like this, it's a fun challenge to figure out what are we going to do this year that's different, that's hopefully a little bit better, that hopefully pushes our ideas a little bit further. And this year we taped 5 new illusions, some of which have never been seen on TV before. And, I think that I personally think it's some of the best, pieces we've ever done on television. So I'm looking forward to hearing what people think of them.
You had mentioned something about styles of magic. Now, what are the different styles of magic?
Well, magic is a lot like music, where, there's so many different types of musicians out there. There's pop music, there's rock music, there's country music. Magic is much the same. Within the genre of magic, there is, large-scale illusions, which I love, and that's things like making ladies float in the air and sawing people in half and walking through walls. There's close-up magic, sleight of hand, which I absolutely love as well, and that's doing things that are kind of very close up to the audience, and oftentimes using objects that are borrowed from the audience or things that people are familiar with. For example, on this year's show, we do a piece all about using magic borrowed from the audience, and we use pens and pencils and dollar bills, and it's creating a piece of magic with their items. So there's that style of magic which I love. There's some great comedy magicians out there who basically put a very large comedy aspect in their magic. It gives it a completely different style from someone, for example, who's more dramatic and doing grand illusions. There are mentalists out there, people who focus on mind reading and psychological illusions. There's just all types, and I think that's what makes the art so much fun. Is that it's not just one thing across the board. There's so many different styles of magic to enjoy, and like music, different people can look at different. Everyone has a different perspective on what they like and what their favorite style is. Personally for me, I try and combine a little bit of everything. When we do our full show, I like it to be a good mix. We do large illusions, we do close-up magic. I do some mind reading. There's certainly comedy in our show, so we try and rather than be a specialty type of show, we try and give our audiences the full array of styles of magic.
One of the things that we hit on last time, and I want to kind of go back to it because you touched on it briefly, you made the comparison between illusion magic and music. And we were talking about building blocks, I think was the analogy we used. With music, you've got a certain set of chords, you've got a certain number of notes on the piano, but it's what the artist does with them and how he arranges them that makes that artist unique to the next guy. Similarly, we talked about that with illusions, where you said there was just a certain number of building blocks to create an illusion, but it's what you do with it and how you present it. When you look at someone else, when you look at another illusionist, you kind of know how they do what they do, correct? I mean, you say, oh, I know how he does that. Where the whole point is the audience doesn't. Do you look for that? Do you look for like they take the building block and then what would impress you would be like, oh, we did that with it, which maybe you didn't think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always tell people it's very tough to shut off the magician switch. It's hard to not think like a magician when you've been doing this so long. I wish I could. I wish I could just shut it off and watch magic and be amazed by it because, magic is one of the very few things that gives people that sense of amazement.
Right.
So I think most magicians will tell you that they have a hard time. It's like a film director watching a movie. You're going to look for all the cuts. You're going to look for the way it was shot. You just can't not think that way. But you're right. So from my perspective, though, I can look at it from a completely different perspective than the audience and kind of understand and realize and appreciate the thought that went into the magic, the presentation, the creativity behind it. And that gives me, my sense of, enjoyment from it. And I love seeing that. I love seeing things where I go, wow, that is a great idea. That is really clever. That to me is very, when I watch a piece of magic, that's what I enjoy seeing.
Who do you like? Who do you like to watch?
I like any magician who puts the time into magic to do it right. In today's world, there's so much information. I mean, you can go on YouTube and there are tens of thousands of magicians. Some are great. Some you could tell really just haven't put the time into it. I'll give you another analogy. I may have mentioned this last time, but it's like playing a violin. You can get a violin and you could buy it, you could spend the money and get it, but it's going to sound awful if you just put the bow on it and start, screeching away at it. But if you put the time in and really put the effort in and the care and the thought into it, it's going to be beautiful. Same with magic. So, I admire anybody who I can look at and go, okay, they put the time in to do that right.
All right, you're not going to name any names then, huh?
No, because you know what? It's a subjective thing. I mean, there are so many different performers and so many different types of magic out there. There's a lot of great out there. There's a lot of really good things out there that again, magic's a very, very deep art. And it's, again, going back to the show, it's one of the things I love about it is it gives people a chance to see just how many different styles and how rich of an art it is.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring up a name, and this was somebody we talked about last time, but we talked about it off air, so I wanted to get it on the air this time. Bill Bixby.
Yeah, so he was an actor, obviously, who did a show called The Magician in the early 70s, a bit before my time, but I been able to collect all those episodes, and he was very passionate about magic, and he had a great way of presenting it, but one of the things he really stood by in doing that show is that he told the producers that if they ever used TV technology. So for listeners who don't know the show, the premise of that show was, it was called The Magician. Bill Bixby was the star of it, and he was I don't want to say like a detective, but he basically was a magician who was called in to use his skills as a magician to help solve crimes.
Right.
And use the specific knowledge and the specific abilities that a magician has to bring that perspective in and to solve the crimes. A very interesting premise. But what he told producers was that if they used TV technology to accomplish the magic, he was going to leave the show. He wanted all the magic to be done legitimately. So he had some of the best magicians of the time come in and teach him, so that the viewing audience would actually get legitimate magic to accompany the show. And I thought that was great. I mean, that showed a real respect for magic.
Well, one of the lines that I remember from a different movie was they were saying the magicians were having a hard time. This was like back in the early 50s, when television was in its infancy. People were saying that you can't misdirect the camera because one of the illusion techniques is misdirection, correct? People are looking somewhere else when you're doing something. And they said you can't misdirect the camera. But in his case, they didn't need to. Is that correct?
Well, when you shoot magic for television, you have to be careful with it in a way that's different from than performing it and designing it for the stage. You're right, because the camera eye doesn't blink. So it's you have to develop the magic so that it can be filmed in one continuous shot, and you don't have that psychological misdirection that you would have with a one-on-one interaction with a person, or with a theatrical interaction with an audience. So it's the magic is created specifically for that situation. It has to be unique. When we pick our content for TV, for Masters, for example, I'm very careful that what we put on TV is something that people can DVR and watch over and over again, and it's not going to harm the illusion. And I think in the case of most of those shows, I think they were pretty smart, like The Magician we were talking about. I think they were pretty smart in picking material that did the same thing.
Well, that was absolutely my favorite show of the 70s detective shows, because there were so many of them on. And I remember as a kid just being bored to death with all of them because they were all pretty much the same, But The Magician was truly different. It was completely different than the others, even though it was still a crime type show. The two that I liked was Columbo and The Magician. Those were my two favorites. But I
agree. Both good shows. And Columbo did a magic episode, if you saw that, many, many years ago.
Oh, I don't remember that. The one thing about The Magician was that it wasn't on very long. It seemed like it got canceled after the first or second season. I don't remember exactly, but you said you've collected the episodes. How many did he actually do?
They only taped for one season.
It was only
and
one,
the reason it didn't go further, I think it was doing fine in the ratings. I think it did, rather well. But there was a writer's strike at that point in time that really created a lot of problems at the end of that season. And I think it was a pretty costly show to do with all the elements involved. So I think that's one of the things that had that strike not happened, from what I had heard, it may have continued. I would have loved to have seen a second season. Reportedly, the writers and the production team were working on ideas for the second season of that show. So it would have been really interesting to see what they would have done. Because you're right, from all the detective and the kind of the crime shows that were out, that was a really unique concept. And I think it was done well. And I think that, I think that Bill was a great guy for the part. I think he really, he did a great job in that role. Because not only was he a really good actor and had a great way about him, but he truly loved the magic, and that kind of came across.
His passion for the magic came across, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We had talked about technology a little bit, and with TV coming in. Now let's fast forward to 2017, where, as we mentioned with music, the landscape of music has been completely changed by technology. Has the landscape of illusions been affected by modern technology, iPads and computers and things that you can do, or is it essentially the same thing?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, are you talking about has technology enabled different illusions to be done, or has it changed the way audiences perceive magic?
Well, okay, both. That could be a two-part question then.
Okay. Well, I think that, so we'll go with how audiences perceive magic, first of all. I think that in today's world, people are used to information coming at them very fast. People can't go, 30 seconds without picking up their phone and seeing what new is there. So from that standpoint, attention spans have gotten really short. So when you're creating magic, 20 years ago, you could do a really dramatic piece. You could do a storytelling piece. You could do a piece that took several minutes just to kind of build up. I think nowadays, and especially on television where people are, there's 200 channels and people are flipping through, you need to get to the point. You need to get to the point fast, I think, to accommodate what essentially technology has done to people's attention spans. So it's creating, it's adjusted the pace of magic. That's not to say that there aren't some pieces that aren't like slower pieces, more dramatic pieces. But as a whole, I think the pace of magic has picked up to keep up with what the viewing audiences are used to and kind of what they want. So that certainly affected that. I mean, and the other thing is, from a technology standpoint, part B of the question is, as things progress, there are illusions that can be done and technology that can be utilized to, create some things that couldn't have been done 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. The other side of that is this. The exact opposite is also possible. There are some magic techniques that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, 100 years old, that are still just as amazing today. And many magicians, including myself, are still using those techniques in their shows. So in that way, technology hasn't harmed what are kind of the truly classic techniques and premises and, ideas in magic. So it goes both ways. It goes in a lot of directions. But as things progress, you certainly have to adjust on all fronts for where technology is going and where society is going, so that you're providing them with the best and the most appropriate show that they're going to want to see and enjoy.
You talked about attention spans being shortened considerably with technology. We talked about this a little bit in the first interview, but I just want to touch on it because I think it's relevant. We talked about a trick. I hate to use that term, sorry. We talked about an illusion or an escape that Harry Houdini did in 1904, where it was an escape from some handcuffs, and I forget the whole thing, but the point was that it took an hour and 10 minutes for him to escape from these handcuffs, and he was behind a screen, and the audience literally had to sit there for an hour and 10 minutes while he wiggled around and banged around and did whatever he did until he got out of these handcuffs. I watched one of your illusions that was a necklace that you literally did the thing in about 3.5 minutes. And we had made the comparison that, do you think an audience these days with their short attention span would be able to sit through an hour and 10 minutes of somebody behind a screen wiggling around? And I would venture that the answer would be no, that they'd get up and walk out after about 5 minutes, and say, well, call us when he gets out of those handcuffs. We'll come back. But I think it's very true, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if anybody would ever sit there, an hour. As a performer myself, if I tried that, I'd be afraid to come out and, you're right, see an empty theater out there. But the other thing is this, is I think that if it's presented the right way, I think that the audience does have the ability to sit there and be pulled in by something, and it can go on longer. I don't think that whole idea is dead. I think it can. I think it has to be done. It's not as easy to do, that's for sure. But if it's done in the right way, in a dramatic way, in a way where the audience really cares and gets wrapped up in what's going on, I think something could certainly last longer than 3 minutes on stage, for sure. But again, you have to be really careful and really specific. And it could be a highlight of the show. It could be the piece that people walk away talking about. But again, it has to be done in a very certain way. I think an hour is, I think that's pushing it. But I think, having it go on, 5 minutes, even 10 minutes, I think that's certainly possible on a stage.
I'm just wondering, during the hour and 10 minutes, was the band playing? Was there music? Was there lights? Was there anything? Or was it just quiet and you just hear him fumbling around behind a screen.
Yeah, I think there was music playing, but I also think that, it's an hour might be. I'd have to talk to some of the, Houdini historians. I think an hour could be a bit long. I think it certainly took a good amount of time, and they played up the struggle in it. But from the audience's perspective, it was certainly, they were sitting there seeing a screen, and you're right, watching it kind of, depending on what the specific escape was, you may see that screen move, you may not see it move. It was seeing it was a lot of waiting to see what would happen. But that was how he presented himself. He presented himself as a guy who could overcome these challenges. And this was in the teens and in the 20s, where it was almost symbolic to, if you look at what was going on in society at that point in time, he was playing to the symbolism of overcoming these challenges and succeeding. And that was very true of a lot of people who were coming to the country at the time, and it was tied into with the feel, and I think that's why he was so successful, and that's why he tapped into the public's consciousness at that point in time. So way more than a magic effect, it was this struggle to succeed that he was illustrating on stage, and I think that's going back to doing it in a way where the public really cares. I think the timing of it and the storyline and what he was getting across, I think that really made them care, and that helped it along.
Did you see the movie The Prestige?
I did, yes.
I kind of got a kick out of one of the illusions, and I sort of laughed, and I thought of you, actually, while I was watching. I watched this movie about, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago or something. It was the one with the Chinese guy with the fishbowl between his legs, and he kind of waddles up and then pulls out the big handkerchief, and woof, all of a sudden there's the fishbowl. Could you do that one? Would that be one you could pull off? That's real low tech.
Me? Well, I think so. I'll answer that question this way.
Okay.
So I think it's a great idea for an illusion. I've seen, when people did that, and that's kind of, when people did that in the past, it amazed people. I think today you would have to update that and use different magical technology to make that work. But I think the effect of that would still be making a giant fishbowl with fish in it. I think that would still be a wow for people. Personally, I would not walk out with it between my legs like that. I think that, we would kind of adapt it accordingly. But the effect I think it would still have an impact today, for sure.
I mean, in the movie, they were pretty amazed that he was able to do that, without looking like he had something between his legs or without dropping the thing. You got to figure that a fishbowl with 10 gallons of water in it's going to be pretty heavy to try to hold between your legs. It wasn't an easy trick to do physically, for sure.
Right. I mean, and there are a number of pieces of magic like that where the method is, so the performer really had to work to make the magic happen. I mean, they really had to, and the goal of the magician is to make it look easy. I mean, you never want the audience to see the work that you put into it. If you see a magician and it looks like they're struggling, unless they're doing an escape that's supposed to look tough, but if it's a piece of magic, it should look effortless. But there are a lot of, pieces of magic through history where it was really hard. And these performers created methods where they had to hide that in front of all these people. And that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy to do.
We got to kind of wrap this up. I just wanted to ask you one last thing. When you create a new illusion, what do you, I guess it's sort of like writing a song, right? You take the building blocks. I'm just trying to get an idea of your methodology about how you would create something different. What inspires you to create a new illusion?
Well, for me personally, it's all about, giving the audience the biggest sense of amazement possible. So I'm always kind of striving to try and come up with ways to, again, give the audience a bigger kind of wow factor when they watch our show, whether it's television or whether it's live. So, and the ideas come from everywhere. I mean, the ideas can come from a piece of music. The ideas, I was telling somebody yesterday that, as a magician, your mind, it doesn't shut off. I mean, whether I'm on a plane, whether I'm in a car, whether I'm walking through a store, everything I see is always kind of evaluated in the sense of, will that lead to an idea for magic? So I'm looking for ideas everywhere. But the basis of it is, what can we do that is really going to connect with the audience? What are they going to care about? What are they going to be able to really become engaged in? And therefore, again, have the most amazement possible by watching us. And a lot of times, we look at premises of magic that we want to update. So I'll give you an example. On this year's Masters of Illusion, we're doing a version of the Sawing a Lady in Half illusion, which is a classic illusion that's been around for 100 years. We wanted to update that, and I wanted to come up with a way to try and make it our own, and make it as good as we can make it. Again, I'm in competition with myself very much. So how can I make this the best that I could possibly do? So we came up with a way of doing it where it's very visual. We have a 40-inch buzzsaw that cuts through the girl, and then there's no boxes over her, and we slide her upper half across the table, we slide her lower half across the table, and then we separate the tables. But it's not played as being scary. It's played for fun. So her upper half, when she's cut in half, her upper half interacts with the audience. Her lower half, her feet move, her legs move. We tickle her feet with a feather. Her upper half laughs. So it's kind of played for fun. But again, it's a way of going, here's a premise, here's a really interesting idea in magic that stood the test of time. How do we take that and go further with it and make it the best that we can be? So a lot of our ideas come from that type of thinking as well. But then again, I was walking through an interesting store we were performing in San Francisco, and there was a really interesting store kind of in Chinatown we were walking through, and there was something in there that I looked at, and instantly I picked it up, and it gave me the idea for an illusion. The item that I had in my hands had nothing to do with magic. It wasn't a magic-related item at all, but it was such an interesting piece that it gets the wheels turning, and kind of we created an illusion around it. So the ideas they really do come from everywhere.
Oh, well, you got to tell us what the piece was.
I'm going to keep it a surprise. It is something that I think next year we're going to put on a TV show. So
if you wanted to find out, you've got to tune in, and you can figure out what that piece was that Michael found in the store, huh?
Yeah, and let's put it this way: they won't. Once they see what it is, they'll know. If they've heard this interview, they'll be able to put two and two together and figure out which one it was.
All right. Well, we got to wrap this up, Michael. Thank you so much for coming back. What you want to plug any place you're going to be in the next month or so?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you again for having me on. It is always good talking with you. Your questions are fantastic. So I truly appreciate it. And over the next several months, we are traveling all over the country. So, I always tell people, if you see a magician with a really long Italian last name coming to your town, it's probably me. So, please come and see us. And we're doing theaters, casinos. We're doing shows with symphony orchestras. We have several sporting event shows coming up. So the schedule keeps us moving from coast to coast. So hopefully people will be able to see us, wherever we are. And hopefully they can tune in for the TV show. Again, it starts June 30th on the CW. Friday nights at 8 o'clock, and it'll run for 13 weeks. So basically all summer long, people can catch, magic, and I'm really excited about that.
All right, Michael. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Great talking to you again. And
great talking with you. Thanks so much.
Hopefully it won't be 18 months before we get to speak with you again.
No, let's make it before that for sure.
That's a date. All right. Take care. Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guest, Michael Grandinetti, and to all the artists on Music X-Ray who submitted. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
To the